Another day, another fulfilled promise by President Donald J. Trump. He just announced moments ago that starting tomorrow, we are going to start seeing the release of the JFK files. Over 80,000 documents. Buckle up because this could be insane. And I'm going to show you a video here in the coming minutes about why these files have been held back for so long. And let's ask a few unanswered questions and hope that those questions get answered. I'm going to go through a few of those as well. But before we get started, my name is Clayton Kearns from TrendingPolitics.com. Please make sure to subscribe to this channel. It really helps us out in a big way, and like this video too. It helps us in the YouTube algorithm so this information can keep getting out there so that these liberal YouTube accounts are not as powerful on YouTube. There's a lot of them out there that do really well. We need to catch up. We cannot give up ground in the digital media space, especially when they are spreading so much propaganda. So let's get right into this, guys. President Trump just made this announcement here about a half hour ago. Let's watch what he says here.
But while we're here, I thought it would be appropriate. We are tomorrow announcing and giving all of the Kennedy files. So people have been waiting for decades for this. And I've instructed my people that are responsible, lots of different people, put together by Tulsi Gabbard, and that's going to be released tomorrow. We have a tremendous amount of paper. You've got a lot of reading. I don't believe we're going to redact anything. I said, just don't redact. You can't redact. But we're going to be releasing the JFK files, and that would be tomorrow. Do you have anything else to add to that, Carolyn? So that's a big announcement. They've been waiting for that for decades. Then I said during the campaign I'd do it, and I'm a man of my word. So tomorrow you have the JFK files. What time will they be released? Tomorrow afternoon. Okay.
Have you seen what's in the files? Have you read them?
I've heard about them.
Was there,
Anything interesting?
It's going to be very interesting.
was there an executive summary supplied to you, Mr. President?
No, I'm not doing summaries. You'll write your own summaries. It's many pages. Is it 80,000 pages? Approximately 80,000 pages. So it's a lot of stuff.
So there's going to be a lot of documents, and a lot of people are saying temper your expectations because you never know what could really come out of it. And I think that's good advice, is to shoot low, and then if we get something crazy, then by all means, let's really investigate it. Let's talk about it. But yeah, this could be crazy. I'm gonna show you this video right here where Tucker Carlson is talking about some secrets as to why he thinks that they haven't been released to this point. And then I'm gonna show you a couple videos by RFK, and then we're gonna talk about 10 unanswered questions that we still have. And if you have any unanswered questions that you wanna see fulfilled in these documents, then please comment below. I wanna see what you have to say. So this video went viral on TikTok. Check this out. So he says, Tucker Carlson, there was no one alive in America who was involved in the Kennedy assassination. Translation, the only logical reason the JFK files cannot be released is to protect a foreign entity. And Chris Cuomo here in this interview says, it's going to make the CIA look really bad. So let's take a look at this video. It's a very fascinating exchange. You need to see this.
Fascinating exchange between Tucker Carlson.
I didn't even know he was going to say that, but it is going to be a very interesting exchange.
And Chris Cuomo on why they think the Trump administration is having such a hard time releasing the JFK files.
And by the way, this was a week ago, so they're coming out now, and he says, they're having a hard time releasing it, but this video is about a week old, but the content is still very, very relevant.
It's fascinating because I think Tucker knows why. He knows he can't say it, but he kind of indirectly hints at it at the very end if you pay super close attention.
What is that? Why have these been secret for so long?
Why don't they put it out? Because institutions protect themselves, Tucker, as we both know.
Really?
And there's clearly information in those files that are going to make the CIA look bad.
Just the CIA?
Well, whatever. Different
No,
agencies.
not whatever. I mean,
I don't know because I haven't seen it.
Well, so here's,
But it could be the FBI, it could be CIA.
Okay, so I've always thought that. And then in January, there was a scramble over who's going to get what jobs in the new administration. And at one point, there was someone who was being discussed for a job in the intel world, and a member of the SSCI, the Senate Select Committee on Intelligence and Intel Committee, went to the people making the decision and said, you cannot hire this person because this person will be certain to push for the release of the JFK files. So this is in 2025, less than 2 months ago, and you have a sitting member of the United States Senate whose main goal is to keep those files secret. And then you have to ask yourself, what is that?
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't actually make sense. The story doesn't make sense.
That's
and by
crazy.
the way, we have the file numbers of most of the files that have not been disclosed. So it's like Trump issues an executive order on January 23rd saying you're going to release this stuff. They kind of can't not release it. And yet now it's the first week of March and they haven't released it. So pressure is currently being applied on the administration not to release those files.
It seems that way.
By whom?
I don't know.
And the CIA has already been through 50 years ago, the Church Committee hearings, 1975, where we sort of know they were assassinating people, dosing people with acid, all this stuff. It's like the CIA has already been discredited. So if you're telling me that 6 weeks ago, a member of the United States Senate was trying to keep someone out of a job in order to keep these files secret, that is to protect the CIA, I don't believe that for a second.
So what do you think it is?
I don't know. But this is, I mean, there's no one at the CIA who's involved.
Then.
Actually, who's involved in the Kennedy assassination. There's no one in America who's involved in the Kennedy assassination.
That last part, did you catch it? He says that there's nobody alive in America who was involved in the JFK assassination thing, meaning that there is no domestic institution to protect. There is no individual here in America that they need to protect. And clearly, perhaps there is some kind of foreign entity that could be implicated if those files were to be released. And I'm pretty confident in saying that if it was China, Iran, Russia, Saudi Arabia, or any of those kinds of countries who would be implicated if those files came out, those files would have come out 62 years ago. There's really only one country in the entire world that America will never point fingers at, no matter what they do. And for the record, I don't know which one.
Very, very cryptic.
Harvey Oswald was a CIA asset. He was recruited. He had been a radar operator. He was a U.S. Marine, a radar operator at the Asui Air Force Base in Japan, which is where the U-2 flew out of. And he was recruited by James Jesus Angleton to do a fake defection to the Soviet Union. And the reason they wanted to do a fake defection is because they knew that there was a mole at Langley who was giving all of the information on the CIA spying programs in the Soviet Union to the Kremlin, and all of our spies were being killed as soon as they got over there, or as soon as they defected. And so they wanted to find out who it was, and Angleton believed that if Oswald defected, this very high-profile defection, that the Kremlin would worry about whether or not he was a spy and would ask their spy at Langley to check his file. And there was a trigger system on that file that would reveal anybody who checked it.
That is, as you can tell, this goes deep. This goes very, very, very deep. And I mean, the more videos we see like this, the crazier this whole thing is. And it's, no secret as to why it's been, they've been held back for so long. So let's watch a couple minutes of this one here. This is also from 2023 of RFK Jr. talking to Hannity about the files.
You lost your uncle, you lost your father. I mean, that's horrible.
Yeah, but what are you saying? Are you...
No, so why do you think that our government could be involved in this evidence?
Listen, when the Warren Commission, obviously, which was run by Alan Dulles, who was the head of the CIA, who my uncle fired, found that it was a lone shooter, which was Lee Harvey Oswald. But when Congress, a congressional committee, reinvestigated between 1977 and 1979, the House Select Assassinations Committee, they concluded, and they saw a lot more documentation and had a lot more witnesses than the Warren Commission ever saw. They concluded that my uncle was killed by a conspiracy. And most of the people, for example, Richard Schweitzer, who was the head of the committee, publicly said, JFK, the President of the United States, that the CIA was involved in the murder of the President of the United States. And that's a quotation. Most of the people on that committee at that time believed it was the CIA, that it was believed certain people in the CIA.
You were 7 at the time? 7 or 8?
I was 10 when my uncle was killed. I was 14 when my father was killed. And today there's overwhelming evidence. I mean, in fact,
why don't the
government
needs to release all of the files on it and let be transparent. Let us see the information.
Yeah, well, that's a good question. There's still, the law requires there's a law that requires that all the records of John Kennedy's assassination be released to the public 10 years ago. So they're still holding 5,000 documents. President Biden promised when he was elected that he was going to release those documents. President Trump promised that he would, but the CIA doesn't want them to. And so the question that I think Americans have a right to ask, including members of, my father and uncle's family, is why not? What is it that you don't want to see 60 years later? And by the way, the last tranche of documents released had documentation in there that finally got even the New York Times to admit that Lee Harvey Oswald was a CIA asset, that he was working for the CIA. So, if the Warren Commission had known that back in 1964, they would have had a very different time. And the House Assassinations Committee never knew that. Mm-hmm. That was released. We've known that we've had documentation that known that at least a decade. But some of that documentation became overwhelming in this last tranche. And finally, the mainstream media acknowledged that, he had this relationship with the CIA going back to 1957 or 1958.
As we said, this goes very deep. And I think we're about to find out some crazy things. Let's go over 10 unanswered questions that we hope to get answers on, okay? So we're gonna rapid fire some of these. Number 1, how many shots were fired and from where? The official Warren Commission report concluded that 3 shots were fired, all from the Texas School Book Depository, but some believe there were more shots or that shots came from another location. Did Oswald act alone? While the Warren Commission concluded Oswald was the lone assassin, many question this conclusion, pointing to inconsistencies and unanswered questions about Oswald's background and actions. There's so many contradictions in that man's life, and it just doesn't add up. Like, as they say in the South, something is afoot. Something is absolutely afoot with this man's background. Number 3, what was Oswald doing in Mexico City before the assassination? Oswald visited the Cuban and Russian embassies in Mexico City shortly before the assassination, raising questions about his potential connections and motivations. Number 4, was the running man in the brown hat an accomplice? A man seen running in Dealey Plaza during the assassination, known as the Running Man, has been speculated to be an accomplice, but his identity and role remain unclear. Number 5, how could a bullet fired downward cut upward in President Kennedy's body? Some argue that the trajectory of the bullet that hit Kennedy contradicts the Warren Commission's findings, suggesting a different shooting angle or, once again, multiple shooters. Who drove the police squad car that honked its horn outside the rooming house where Oswald had fled? The identity of the driver of the police car that honked its horn near Oswald's room house is unknown, and the purpose of the honking horn remains a mystery. Number 7, how was Jack Ruby able to penetrate the Dallas police headquarters? Isn't it crazy that he was just able just to walk up and shoot the man? There's something also afoot there. Ruby, who later assassinated Oswald, was able to enter the Dallas police headquarters despite it being sealed off to even Secret Service agents, raising questions about his connections and motives. Okay, Jack Ruby was connected to some really bad people. Was this a cover-up? Did he want to silence Oswald? Number 8, did Oswald have access to the CIA and other intelligence agencies? Some argue that Oswald was monitored by the CIA and other intelligence agencies for years, suggesting that he may have been involved in covert operations. And 2 more for you. Number 9, what was the fate of the magic bullet? The Warren Commission's magic bullet theory, which stated that one bullet caused all of Kennedy's and Connolly's wounds, has been widely disputed, and the fate of that bullet is still debated. And number 10, did John Connolly get hit by the same bullet as Kennedy, which is aligned with the one right before? Connolly stated he was not hit by the same bullet as Kennedy, contradicting the Warren Commission's findings. Again, when you watch this video, like, the Zapruder film is one of the most viewed pieces of media in history, in world history. And it's still crazy to watch. But the different angles and the how they go and explain the ricochet and all that kind of stuff, so much just doesn't add up. So much doesn't add up, and I really hope that we get some details here very, very soon. Starting tomorrow, March 18th, we will start to see a drip of over 80,000 JFK files, and I will update you every step of the way when we find out the new stuff. So please keep it locked into the channel. Make sure to like and subscribe right now if you want to hear. We're going to be talking about all the information that comes out about the JFK files. So please make sure to subscribe, and we're going to do deep dives. We're going to be asking questions. There's going to be a lot of crazy stuff happening.